Amy, let me tell you about a magical place that is so exactly designed to be enclosed space, year-round fun for the whole family that I bet you already know what I'm going to say before I even say the name. Let's say it together on 3. 1, 2, 3. Great Wolf Lodge. You got it, Amy.
My kids loved Great Wolf Lodge when we went. You probably already know that it has a huge indoor water park with a wave pool, lazy river, a bunch of massive water slides. But then your pack can hit the other attractions because, wait, there's more.
Great Wolf Lodge has adventure-packed attractions like Magi Quest, a live-action game kids can play throughout the lodge, plus the Northern Lights Arcade. Spent some quality time there, so your kid who loves the lazy river and your kid who loves fantasy games will both have a great time.
Great Wolf Lodge also offers great dining options and complimentary daily events like nightly dance parties, all under one roof. Unpack the car once and you're settled in to have fun. And with 22 lodges across the country, you're always a short drive away from adventure.
We've both had such great times at Great Wolf Lodge, so bring your pack together at a lodge near you. Learn more at greatwolf.com and strengthen the pack.
Just don't say anything annoying.
What fresh hell?
Laughing in the face of motherhood. Nobody sees how hard I worked to get us to pickleball. With Margaret Abels
and Amy Wilson.
It is pretty fun to be the parent that's on the other team.
A podcast that solves today's parenting dilemmas
so you don't have to. There is no good coming from interacting with the wet cat. Hello, everyone, and welcome to What Fresh Hell, Laughing in the Face of Motherhood. This is Margaret.
And this is Amy. Today, we're going to talk about what you do when you're the one who's dysregulated.
Oh, does that ever happen to you, Amy, getting dysregulated?
It does. And I feel like we've spent a lot of time on how to deal with kids who are dysregulated. And then sometimes it's time to fess up and be like, it's me, I'm the monster, it's me, I'm impossible right now.
We recently came home from a vacation at a resort that is, think Disney World, but not Disney World. All we saw was couples fighting with themselves and their children. The family holiday in paradise just descends into watching a million people yell, "I thought you brought the sunscreen," at their spouses while their kids are both crying.
Yeah. I mean, that's situational.
Yes.
My spouse tells a story of being at Disney World in a time and place where that was something the family really had to save for multiple years. The fighting in a hotel room in Kissimmee St. Cloud when it's pouring rain. And there's nothing anybody can do about it, but everybody's dysregulated at the same time.
Everybody seemed very dysregulated. We spent a lot of money to be here. It's supposed to be fantastic. We're actually just ourselves here. You know, the situational dysregulation was on full display, and not just among other people. I was similarly dysregulated and like, we made a pickleball appointment. And I was screaming at everybody that we like have to get to pickleball to enjoy this fantasy vacation that we're supposed to be having. And it's hard when you're feeling dysregulated.
And it's not always easy to know. So today I want to talk about emotional dysregulation as sort of a valley, not something like the picnic, it was raining and everybody was mad, but more like you're in it.
Yes.
This is something you're maybe a little stuck in. Certainly we can recognize it in our children and our partners. And then sometimes in ourselves, I think it's a little harder. I tried to find this in the research and really couldn't. Do people who are emotionally dysregulated cop to it?
No, they're emotionally dysregulated.
Like, okay, yes, I've been really on edge lately. Can you tell? Because there have been times in my life, in my parenting career of over 2 decades at this point, where one of my kids will say to me, like, stop yelling. And I think like, I'm not yelling, right? Or my partner just recently said to me, like, why are you so upset about this? In a way that I perceived as sort of dysregulated. But then I was like, I'm not that upset. But you really think that I am. So am I just not even reading myself accurately?
Yeah.
Spoiler alert, I was not really able to get research on that. But I do think it's true. It's easy for us to see when other people are emotionally dysregulated. So I want to talk about like what it actually is, and when it's a problem and why it's a problem, and then what we do about it, as we like to do on this podcast.
Yes. Yes. Right? Is it a problem? Yes, it is probably. How are we going to solve it?
Right. So let's start like we always do with like, but what is it really? Emotional dysregulation, because it is sort of an Instagram buzzword that we like to diagnose other people with. So what is that? So there's a couple of different definitions. Cleveland Clinic says emotional dysregulation means having difficulty managing your emotions and the way you react to them. When you're in this state, your feelings or reactions might seem stronger or more intense than what others might expect in a given situation, which is your pickleball example.
Right.
Like, why are you so upset about the pickleball reservation? There's a mismatch between how upset or angry you are and the trigger. Then psychologist Ross Thompson gives this example: patterns of emotional experience or expression that interfere with goal-directed activity.
Break that one down for me.
This is interesting, and I hadn't thought about this. People who are emotionally dysregulated have a harder time achieving their goals than people who aren't, which is, okay, an interesting thing to kind of think about. Like, if you want to achieve the things you want to achieve in life, it's harder when you're emotionally dysregulated because you're throwing up roadblocks in your own way by constantly being so irritable and angry. We'll talk about why.
In this sense, though, is emotional dysregulation a permanent state, like a personality trait, or is it something that happens sometimes?
I think it is. Some people are stuck in it, and some people it happens sometimes. I think all of us have this some of the time. Some of us have this all of the time.
It strikes me right off the bat that a lot of this is going to be like the iceberg reaction in terms of like, you're seeing me go crazy because we're 5 minutes late to pickleball. I am seeing that we spent whatever, $120 to make a reservation to play pickleball. I planned this whole vacation. I planned these 4 activities because you all told me you wanted to do them. And now I have to be the shrew who gets us there on time, even though I spent the money and you told me you wanted to do this, but I end up on vacation. Everybody else seems to be relaxing, and I seem to be like the taskmaster who's like, we have to get to dinner. But it's like, wait, we do have to get to dinner.
Right.
They're going to charge us if we don't show up at this reservation.
Right.
So I don't like to be stuck in that role of like, she's always yelling. It's like, I'm trying to like make things happen. Like, you're not seeing the pyramid, the iceberg underneath.
I and my family play the one who's annoyed that we are late leaving for the airport again. Right. But like, you do need to leave for the airport on time. There are times that recently we traveled as a family for our like, relaxing vacation on the most like disgustingly crowded airport I've ever been in. And we like barely made the flight. We had time to like grab, a water and a peanut M&Ms because it took so long to get through security and took so long to get through traffic, and we left late. And as I boarded the plane, I was like, so relaxed. I was like, finally, everybody will stop rolling their eyes at mom, who's like, we were supposed to leave 20 minutes ago. Like, we barely made the plane this time. So no one will ever be mad at me again. Instead, it was just like, let's all make fun of mom for overthinking it. It's fine. We made the plane. Like, what are you talking about?
Right. It is tricky. It's like, you're causing my emotional dysregulation and then dismissing my emotional dysregulation. And that is frustrating.
Oh my God. And recently, my teenager, we were fighting over who was going to take care of the dog, our elderly dog. And it was like, what are you just take her. You just deal with it. And right. And I am like the iceberg of the dog I got for who? The dog who was supposed to be taken care of by whom? Who swore they would, right? And now it's just like, I can't be bothered for 2 hours. You do it, as if I don't already do 90% of it. Yeah. So we're totally justified in being emotionally dysregulated.
We're 100% right, and everyone is out to get us. But yes.
Right.
But there's also the dysregulation of having a chronically ill parent who you are constantly dealing with emergencies and, putting out fires, and the exhaustion of that while you're also trying to help a cranky teenager with homework or a cranky 2-year-old take a bath or whatever. Like, that's a little bit more like there's a hum of stress in the background that is kind of making you emotionally dysregulated all the time.
Exactly. Right. So that the 2-year-old not getting into the bath is like, oh my God, you're like at that level of stress. That's not that stressful, but it's because the triggers have piled and now you're in this state of dysregulation.
Yeah. I mean, both of us have experienced the death of a parent while raising children. And that is a very dysregulating experience to which my children were very young when my mom died. And, they don't sit there and be like, this must be hard for you. Let me just go ahead and eat whatever's being served for dinner tonight because I can tell you're having a hard time.
Nope.
Like, that doesn't come up. I think with older kids, I have been able to be a little bit more like, guys, you know that I'm dealing with a medical problem of my own or a medical problem of someone else or the stress of what's going on right now with my career or whatever. Can you guys give me a little extra grace in this time or step up a little bit more? And my teens have been, not perfect, but I feel like they are at least responsive to that in a way that they were not able to be when they were like 5, 7, and 8, and my mom was dying.
I mean, I would argue you are operating from a place of emotional regulation when you're able to say, look, I'm upset right now. And so I might, right? Like that's the goal, to get to that place where you can.
That's a good point.
You can recognize I'm in a more reactive state. That means that I might, and that means I need you to. I mean, I think we can do that. And then sometimes we're not in that state. I wanted to go through. So this is one more set of definitions of emotional dysregulation, like what exactly it is. This is from Harold Koenigsberg. And I thought it explains it a little more clearly than just like you're mad. If you have emotional dysregulation, you have what he calls frequent categorical shifts, lability, which is like blow up out of nowhere, big swings in emotion.
Got it. Okay.
And sometimes I've experienced them out in life being with somebody who's like, where did that come from? Right?
Yes.
I'm thinking of the experience on the side, but you might not realize you're blowing up over nothing if you're the one doing it. High affective intensity. This is like you're blowing your top and you're really putting on a show. Your affect is intense. Rapid emotional rise times. Okay, 0 to 100, kind of the same thing. Slow rates of return to emotional baseline. I've done this. Like, why are you not listening to me? And then it's like, whew, like, all right, I'm so mad at everybody. And it takes me a long time to calm down.
Well, my husband and I have this problem all the time where I'm like, you have apologized and we have moved past it, but I'm still extremely mad. So now I just have to review again. Like, but do you really understand why it was so insulting? And he's like, wait, I thought we fixed this. And I'm like, right, but my body is still mad at you. So I can't just be like, oh, I accept your apology and we're done.
You have bigger swings, right? In general.
I'm not back at my emotional baseline, fella.
Right. And somebody who's a little more straight and narrow, as you have told us that your partner is, right, is going to be able to return to that baseline because the swing wasn't as big.
Yeah.
Excessive reactivity to psychosocial cues is another sign of this emotional dysregulation.
Walk me through that. What does it mean?
Your kid rolling their eyes at you is a psychosocial
That is
cue.
psychosocial. It makes me psycho.
If you go psycho.
I go psycho when they roll their eyes.
If you're excessively reactive to that, or you think they rolled their eyes, or you think that they slam the refrigerator door with an underlying message. This one gets a little specific. Random, chaotic, or rapidly cycling fluctuation in effect. I don't know what that means. I think it just means like you're fine, you're mad really quickly. And this last one, it's like, ooh, touche. Histrionic reporting of affective experience. I experienced this just recently with my spouse. My spouse is like, what are you so upset about? I was almost in tears from something that I could see. He was like, why are you mad? And I'm trying to explain how I feel. And I'm just dysregulated. And so and you always, and it's when you get to that, I have never been so insulted. And they're like, I don't even understand. Like, I just texted you back. Okay. But
right.
To you, and when you're trying to report how you feel, other people might perceive it as overblown. Even if you don't feel that way, others perceive it as perhaps slightly histrionic when you're like, can you believe she said that to me? It's like, she wasn't that mean.
Yeah, that's right. This is where I worry about my parenting the most. And you touch on it, is that I'm like, could everyone just get their shoes on and get in the car? And I'm experiencing is like, you guys could just see that I'm just expressing that I'm frustrated that we're late, but my kids are experiencing it as a very scary experience where I am scaring them. And that mismatch plagues me. I think I'm just being like, ugh, I'm so frustrated, but my loved ones are perceiving it as like fire spouting dragon crazy person.
Yeah. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, I want to talk about that, how emotional dysregulation can be contagious in a household. Hellions, it's time for some spring cleaning, and I don't just mean the coat closets. Doing your financial spring cleaning can actually be super easy when you let Monarch do your financial spring cleaning for you. One dashboard that gets your entire financial life organized. No more clutter, no more mess, no more logins scattered everywhere, just accounts, investments, property, and more, all in one place. Get your first year of Monarch for half off, just $50 with promo code FRESH. Monarch allows you to look not only at what you've already spent, but also to plan for the future. With Monarch, you can set savings goals, plan for big purchases, and notice spending trends before they become a problem. I can generate cash flow reports that show me what we spent this quarter, this month, what we're probably going to spend next month, and feel prepared, organized, and knowing how to plan for the future. No more surprises and a lot more clarity. Try Monarch. Use code FRESH at monarch.com to get your first year half off at just $50. That's 50% off your first year at monarch.com with code FRESH.
Amy, when I'm having a good hair day, it usually makes my whole day better. And that's why on every day, I'm taking Nutrafol.
Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist-recommended hair growth supplement brand. And it's the #1 hair growth supplement brand personally used by dermatologists. Nutrafol's hair growth supplements are peer-reviewed, NSF certified for sport, and clinically tested.
Nutrafol offers multiple formulas for men and women, tailored to different life stages and lifestyle factors, so you get support that's actually right for you. Adding Nutrafol to your daily routine is easy. Order online, no prescription needed, with automated deliveries and free shipping to keep you on track.
Let your hair be one less thing to worry about. See visibly thicker, stronger, faster-growing hair in 3 to 6 months with Nutrafol.
For a limited time, Nutrafol is offering our listeners $10 off your first month subscription and free shipping when you visit Nutrafol.com and enter promo code LAUGHING.
That's Nutrafol.com, spelled Nutrafol.com, promo code LAUGHING. All my kids learned to swim when they were little. It was super important to me that they be confident and safe in the water. There was only one problem with that: taking them to swim lessons. I mean, the pools were freezing. There were always cranky adults doing laps right there. And it was definitely not, for any of us, what you would call fun.
Amy, heard. But now there's Goldfish Swim School. Goldfish takes a really thoughtful approach to swim lessons, combining research-based teaching with a warm, kid-friendly environment that actually helps kids thrive in the water.
Every detail at Goldfish is thoughtfully designed to create a golden experience, from shiver-free, warm indoor pools to comfy waiting areas for parents to professionally trained lifeguards on deck.
Goldfish uses an approach called the science of swim play, which combines guided play with proven teaching techniques to help kids learn to swim, build water safety skills, and gain confidence, all at their own pace. Lessons are designed to meet kids exactly where they're at.
If you've been thinking about swim lessons or just wondering where to start, this is a great opportunity. Right now, Goldfish Swim School is offering a waived membership plus your child's first lesson free at participating locations.
Just visit goldfishswimschool.com/free to find a location near you and enroll using promo code FREE.
That's goldfishswimschool.com/free, promo code FREE. So before the break, you were talking about how your kids perceive your emotional dysregulation. And is that a problem? One of the questions I wanted to answer as I was researching this is, does an emotionally dysregulated parent create a greater likelihood of a kid who's going to be emotionally dysregulated? So I looked into it, and yes, having a parent who is emotionally dysregulated makes a child more likely to have their own issues with emotional dysregulation. There was a study that showed that young children were more irritable when their mother had emotional dysregulation. And irritability is an early sign of emotional dysregulation issues. And of course, when the kid's irritable and the parent is irritable and it goes back and forth, it creates a feedback loop of irritability and then eventually emotional dysregulation.
Right. And you're both feeding the other person's emotional dysregulation.
And I think, the kid is learning that this is like a way to behave. And you can grow up if you have an emotionally dysregulated parent. I'm talking like all the time, like likely to have blow-ups and whatever. That creates a lot of vulnerability and negative attachment experiences that can affect a kid growing up. So you don't want this to be the water that your kids are swimming in.
For sure.
That being said, I want to go back and make it clear that being emotionally dysregulated for kids is entirely developmentally appropriate.
For sure. I mean, think of any toddler. Emotional dysregulation is what they do.
Right.
I want a cake pop. Okay, here's your cake pop. I don't want that cake
Not
pop,
this
and
one.
throwing
Right.
it on the floor and smashing it. And you're like, whoa, I'm living with a maniac.
Right. They have temper tantrums because they cannot manage their emotions. Wild swings, right? The lability we were talking about before. Huge reactions that are kind of cute and funny when they're two, when they're, they're pounding their little fists in rage.
Yeah.
That is a typical, so we're not saying that that is something that shouldn't happen or that your little kid shouldn't be doing. They need to do that. They need to express their emotions unhealthily before you express them healthily. And these things tend to go away as kids get older, as kids reach school age, or they get a little more peer pressure, like you can't behave like that because then the kids won't want to play with you. It tends to dissipate. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes kids have neurodevelopmental differences that can make them have a little more emotional lability, like kids with ADHD or kids in the autism spectrum. They can have issues with this that persist. And then sometimes these coping skills exist into the teen years and adulthood. And nobody's a bad person, but these things do get in the way. It's not great.
Right. Being emotionally dysregulated is morally neutral, but the effects of emotional dysregulation can be harmful to the people around it. And both of those things can be true. And that's okay. Okay. So we understand that you have autism and therefore you are emotionally dysregulated. And when things change, as they will, no matter how much we try to do social stories or pictures and tell you what's going to happen, there's going to be things that come up that are frustrating. And the stress of knowing that those bombs are kind of out there, and whenever we step on one, it's going to be an explosion and it's going to be frustrating and possibly scary for everybody in the family. That is dysregulating, no matter what the source of that is.
That's right. And again, to underline, growing up in a household where somebody is prone to tantrums and outbursts, particularly when it's a parent, but even when it's a peer, a sibling or an older sibling, it's unsettling. The irritability and the negative contagion is present. It's hard to be around.
I know that they talk about this a lot with PTSD, and I'm not making a one-to-one comparison, but the problem with high trauma situations, like, for example, being in a war zone, is that it's a lot of downtime and then bombs. The problem is you're never really at peace, but there are long stretches of quiet. But then you never know when they're going to be interrupted by gunfire or bombs going off or whatever. And I think that emotional dysregulation, there is a parallel there, that it's not that it's always happening, but that it's always about to happen, or it's going to happen at some point. It makes the downtime very particularly stressful. There's an expression in a book about dealing with people with borderline personality disorder who tend to be explosive and dysregulated, walking on eggshells. That's the feeling of constantly creeping and trying to keep things peaceful, but knowing that it's going to break at some point.
Yeah. There's a whole other part to emotional dysregulation that I had not understood until I did the research for this episode, that one of the symptoms of it is feeling detached or numb or withdrawn, which I thought was interesting. I didn't really get that would be part of it, that somebody who has blow-ups can also be completely unpresent and withdraw. But they call it a maladaptive regulation strategy. You can't really calm down. You can't really say what you were saying before, hey, I'm sorry about before. I'm going through a difficult time and I really, I'm sorry and I know I'm on edge. If you're doing all that, you are regulated. Whereas somebody who's truly dysregulated, they can throw a switch and just shut down, because they know that they maybe shouldn't be yelling at everybody, but they can't return to earth. They just have to throw a kill switch, so to speak.
Yeah. And I think that generationally in the past, emotionality was not encouraged. So there was probably a lot of holding on to feelings, and then either explosions or women who were dealing with chronic depression or other things, mom was in bed a lot.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense to me. That is emotional dysregulation, but it's not anger.
It's not anger, right? The other swing is, I was about to say Shazbot. That's an Goldilocks alert. Back in my day, Mork used to say that on Mork and Mindy when he wanted to go back to his home planet. He'd say Shazbot and he just would disappear.
Wow, that is a really deep cut. Even you missed me with that one. I know Mork from Ork, but wow, that's a deep cut. Congratulations.
Peace out, Shazbot, and they would disappear, right?
But I think that feeling of Well, I'm not yelling at my kids, but I am in bed at 4 p.m. looking at my phone while they're in the house. Like, that doesn't feel great. It feeds itself that now I've failed my kids and now we're just going to stay in this loop cycle of like, I basically took a personal day and took to my bed because I couldn't handle life. But now I'm beating myself up that I'm a terrible mom, that I'm letting the cycle just start going.
Then the shame kicks in.
Yes.
Right? And so I can't say, gosh, I'm really sorry I acted like that. So I'm just going to shut down and then kind of emerge from the bedroom and everybody's going to be walking on eggshells. And that's how we return to normal, is this tacit in general. I'm not saying this is happening at Margaret's house, but right, when you have a parent who's emotionally dysregulated, they disappear and then they come back and, okay, I guess we're not talking about that. I guess we're back to normal now. And it doesn't feel great to be around it. But that's the uneasy piece that exists.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think we're starting to point towards being open about what's going on as probably like one of the solutions to this thing. I mean, I've talked about this with dealing with OCD, that I had OCD since I was a kid. But one of the things when I had children was I was like, they can never know that I do this. They can never see this thing that I do because it's crazy, right? Like having to walk to the kitchen to touch the oven before I can start working is crazy behavior. And working with a therapist, I really got to a point of my OCD is something that tells me how anxious I'm feeling. And it's morally neutral. Like touching the oven is morally neutral. Some people might bite their fingernails, but that I was adding your second arrow of like, if my kids know that I do this, I am a failure as a parent, rather than being able to say like, so my anxiety manifests in behaviors that are known as obsessive compulsive disorder. And this is why you might see me like touching this frame when I walk by it. It's almost an involuntary thing. It's almost an involuntary behavior,
And when it is something like touching a frame, it seems to me that must be a way that your body is seeking to maintain regulation.
Correct.
I'll be calmer if I do this. If I don't do this, I'm going to be feeling a little jingle jangle if I don't. So I'm maintaining regulation by doing these things.
I'm attempting probably to maintain regulation. And there probably are a lot better ways to maintain regulation. And a lot of the therapy around it is what they call harm reduction, rather than like, you're not going to eliminate this behavior, but like, okay, maybe going back and forth to the kitchen 8 times a night before you can go to sleep we need to replace that behavior with something else, because that's really getting in the way of living your life.
So there's 2 sort of downstream things that people with emotional dysregulation deal with. Besides it not being great for other people, this is why having emotional dysregulation is not great for you if you have it. People with emotional dysregulation are much more likely to ruminate. And ruminate means to think repetitively about your own negative emotional experiences.
Right.
You like to call it my precious.
My precious. You stroke that wonderful feeling of beating yourself up.
Of righteousness. Or maybe it's shame, but maybe it's like, can you believe she said that to me?
Nobody appreciates me. Nobody sees how hard I worked to get us to pickleball.
And it's negative bias, and it maintains the emotional dysregulation. Like you said before, like, I'm still mad. I kind of want to still be mad. I'm not done being mad yet.
Well, that's a whole other thing. Is like, I've definitely set some traps in my life. My husband, not a great birthday guy when we first got married. I could literally watch him screwing it up. I could tell he hadn't made a dinner reservation.
2 days out, 1 day out.
2 days out, there's no wrapping paper in the house. I'm like, oh, here it comes. I can admit that there were times where I leaned into looking in the closet. There's no wrapping paper. Wow, he's really going to blow it. And I'm going to just taste the marrow of it somehow. I mean, it's a confusing thing. But yes, I want this feeling of how badly you screwed up.
The other thing that people with emotional dysregulation have downstream is they're more likely to view having strong emotion as threatening in and of itself. Do you know the kind of person who's like, don't tell me, like, I won't be able to handle that. I'm so upset even thinking about that it might happen that I can't handle it. That kind of a person.
Wait, that's me though. Is that bad?
It's not bad. It can be downstream of emotional dysregulation, that you feel like you will be unable to cope with bad things that have not actually happened yet.
Yeah. I mean, that's part of my anxiety. I can't hear about the monkey getting rejected by its mother. Like, I don't want to put that on my pile of things that I'm worrying about. People who want to be like, oh my God, did you hear this horrible story about 8 people who were killed somewhere? I'm like, no, please don't add things to my pile.
And it doesn't mean you must always listen to every detail of the terrible story about the moms who were in the avalanche. Like, you don't need to participate fully in every bad thing that has happened in the world in a way that I think our phones make us feel sometimes.
Yes.
And this isn't bad. This is just, if you have emotional dysregulation, you have a story for yourself that you won't be able to handle hard things because emotion is scary. So when we come back, let's talk about what we do if we're emotionally dysregulated.
At DSW, we ask the important questions, like, what shoes are you going to wear? Whether you're prepping for wedding season, festival season, or just planning the ultimate vacay, the right shoes can make or break an RSVP. So own the moment. You've got big plans, and we've got just the shoes, at the perfect price, of course. Get ready to get ready with Designer Shoe Warehouse. Head to your DSW store or dsw.com today, and let us surprise you.
My favorite skincare products actually feel more like self-care, like they're so nice to put on and they smell so good that I'm actually happy when I get to that part of my day. And I swear that is how I feel about Osea's anti-aging body balm.
Amy, you are usually the lotions and potions queen on this podcast, but I have to say, hard agree.
Osea's anti-aging body balm is a liquid silk body balm that combines the lasting hydration of a lotion with the firming power of a serum, leaving skin smoother and firmer.
This body balm is clinically tested and designed to deliver visible results you can see and feel.
So we've gotten to use this product for a couple of months now, and I swear I have really noticed firmer and smoother skin, like on the back of my hands. It's like getting a mini spa treatment from head to toe.
Get a spring-worthy glow with clean, clinically tested skincare from Osea. And right now, we have a special discount just for our listeners.
Get 10% off your first order site-wide with code FRESH at OseaMalibu.com.
That's 10% off your first order with code FRESH at OSEAMalibu.com. All right, Amy, how are we solving this? Let me know.
Well, the first thing is that emotional dysregulation is definitely treatable, both professionally, if you're at that state, and in your own daily life. There are things you can do like therapy, like anti-anxiety medication, and limiting your use of substances. If you are somebody who's prone to outbursts, look at how often you're maybe using things to numb yourself.
Yeah, that's super interesting. And I think sometimes, with anxiety and stuff, it's like, oh my God, I just need a cocktail. I got to calm down. That's not actually helping your anxiety. It's really not.
Right.
I think another interesting thing that I'm seeing in your notes is acknowledging that emotional dysregulation has an actual cost. Because we try, I think, rightfully on the podcast to be like, it's okay. It's okay that you're feeling this. We don't want to ever add to mom's feeling. And on top of it, your emotional dysregulation is screwing up your life and your kids. Mm-hmm. We don't want to put anything more on moms than they already have. But I think that acknowledging that constant anxiety, anger, sadness is bad for you and your kids is very important. It is bad for your health. Stress is bad for your health. Things that are causing you to fight constantly with your spouse are bad for your family structure. And so we can skip the blame part, but we can also acknowledge that this is something that needs to be fixed for real. It's a real problem.
It is a real problem, and it's more likely to happen, I think, to mothers in particular than perhaps other adults. There's this book called Mother Nurture. It's at least 2 decades old, but they talk about something called depleted mother syndrome. Mm-hmm. And they suggest, we're soaking in it, depleted mother syndrome. This is Dr. Jan Hansen and Dr. Rick Hansen. They say depleted mother syndrome occurs when demands on the mother increase, her resources decrease at the same time.
Yes.
As a result of the imbalance, like see also pandemic, that we all went through this. That's a moment when somebody's emotional sensitivity to internal and external triggers becomes heightened. So I'm trying to say we are probably more likely as default parents to have to deal with emotional dysregulation because of the constant demands on us and the depleted resources we sometimes have to deal with all the things we have to deal with. It doesn't make you a bad person that you're emotionally dysregulated. Your stress might have created that. But you're also right that it's not great for anybody, including you. So trying to find a way out and deal with it without beating yourself up, because that beating yourself up will probably just contribute to the negative feedback loop and will not actually do that much to improve the situation. So you can skip that part.
Yeah. And I think that in the conversations we've been having on the podcast recently, I feel like it's been really helpful to me to kind of put your piece of paper between I don't judge myself for yelling at my kids, and I don't judge other mothers for yelling at their kids. But at the same time, I can recognize that yelling is generally not a great disciplinary tactic. It generally signals emotional dysregulation and being out of control. And so I don't need to spend a lot of time judging myself for yelling, but I can still acknowledge that yelling is a sign that things are out of control. And therefore, yes, everybody yells. It's not something that we're like, listen, if you're yelling, you're failing. If you're yelling, you're a bad parent. But we also have to be able to say, yelling is not useful. It is not the best way to parent. I'm a yeller. My kids were imitating me actually while we were recently on vacation. For some reason, they imitate me with a really crazy New York accent, but they were just imitating me being like, get in the car, and just doing this funny, screaming impression of me. And I'm like, ha, ha, ha. But also, I actually have to try to stop doing that behavior. I do not want my children remembering me as a wall of yelling noise.
Yeah.
Which they won't, because there are lots of aspects to my parenting. But I want to lessen the amount of yelling and up my amount of emotional regulation all the time.
When we had Erin Cox on the podcast a couple of weeks back, she was talking about co-regulation. We were talking to our kids about what's going on in the news and seeing kids being taken and, masked agents outside schools. And she said that co-regulation was the key, that we need to do the work to be regulated ourselves, because then that helps our kids regulate. So if dysregulation is contagious, so is calm, and we can co-regulate. I'm wondering, is there ever any way when, like I said, that I'm like, I can't believe we almost missed this flight, and everybody's laughing like, haha, mom, there she goes again. And I use that to fuel
rage,
justified rage, that instead can I borrow a page of oh, they're right, it's funny. There's an opportunity to join in the fun and the laughter there instead of the nobody understands me part. And I wonder if I could try to seek out that as an opportunity to co-regulate.
If it's true, I think you can. I mean, I was laughing at the kids imitating my, goofy screaming. And I think for all of my kids, it's been helpful. When we can laugh about things, it makes them less scary. But I think we also have to be careful not to laugh at things that are not funny. I have been very clear with my husband and my children that I'm not the butt of the joke. That's not fun for me. I don't find that fun. Our family is not structured around mom's an idiot, dad's an idiot, kids are idiots. Our family is deeply structured around the fact that our cats are idiots and we like to call them dopes and stuff. But that's it. We're allowed to goof on the cats, and that's the only person. So I think that you can't laugh things off. But I think sometimes you laugh. And sometimes at dinner that night, when you're all enjoying the destination that you've gotten to, you can also say, hey, how are we going to travel so that it doesn't all fall on me to be screaming at everybody?
Right. It is a mode you can fall into. Isn't mom annoying or isn't dad annoying? And it is pretty fun to be the parent that's on the other team in that case, right? Oh, I know.
There she goes again, being uptight and idiotic while we all just enjoy vacation
that she planned.
Sometimes you do need to laugh it off, but sometimes you need to be acknowledged. Sometimes the last night of the trip needs to be, let's all hear it from mom who put this together and got us packed and made sure we were here on time. And let's all take a second to acknowledge that,
And sometimes it does have to be you own your stuff. Sometimes the flip side of this is that you do have to say I'm sorry that I overreacted to whatever. I'm going to read you a quote here. When the emotional climate resets without apology or repair, resentment builds. That's what I was talking about being in the household with somebody who's chronically emotionally dysregulated. And it's either game time and everybody hide, or we're not going to talk about that, right? We're going to pretend that didn't happen. And that's how resentment and confusion and long-term attachment issues can build. So I think it can be tricky to bring it up without getting right back into the disagreement.
Yeah. And I think that's where, yes, sometimes it is right to laugh it off. But if you laugh it off every time and then you're like, I hate these people who are such ingrates,
Right.
you've got a problem. I have one child and we set each other off. I start something, it annoys this child, then I get mad. And I don't have it with every child, but it's something that we've been able to talk about, sometimes with the help of a therapist, an intermediary, sometimes on our own, to say, listen, you and I, for whatever reason, there's an old saying, the revolving door on the Irish bar, like the drunk tries to leave and then it comes back in and the fight starts again. That is our dynamic. We just cannot seem, once we get going with each other, to get out of it. I get very dysregulated. I've talked before about I have so much trouble letting stuff go. If I hear someone in the upstairs bedroom be like, what? She's so, I'm like running up the stairs, opening the door and like jumping in that fight, rather than pretending I didn't hear it, which is probably the better choice. You know, like they're just blowing off steam. They're a teenager. I'm an adult. But I realize that my emotional dysregulation gets triggered when we both feel frustrated. We immediately go to like opposite sides of the ring, put our boxing gloves on and just come at each other.
Right. You can feed each other with that, and you can also co-regulate, which is hard. But if you own your side of the street a little bit, right, and just try to be, this is not easy for me to do, but to be like, yeah, I guess I am sort of uptight recently, right? And what am I going to do about that? And what are you going to do about that? It doesn't mean get out the hair shirt because you're not being nice to everybody all the time, but it means pay a little more attention to yourself. This is caused by stress. So maybe you need more sleep. Maybe you need to have a real breakfast. Maybe there are things you can do for yourself, more time to reset when your spouse gets home from work, whatever. There are things you can do to make yourself more regulated so that you're not in this place where you're unable to respond appropriately to things. It's nobody's fault, and it's something that can be reset with as attention and by owning it a little bit, I think, instead of everybody has to just not annoy me, right? Which is where I go to. Just don't say anything annoying.
I think it's so much healthier. And it's very hard to do, and I don't do it often enough, to say, hey, guys, I'm having a bad week. I'm not even going to go into all the reasons why I'm having a bad week, but I'm having a bad week. Or, hey, you and I keep falling into this problem. My husband and I have gotten to a point where we have literally like a code word where I can feel myself getting just like, I want to start going through everything you've ever done wrong. You forgot my birthday in 2000 and whatever, you know? And that I have said sometimes, tonight is a no fight night. Just leave me alone. Don't talk to me. But also don't let me start a fight. I can feel it coming. It's really improved our relationship to say, I am a wet cat right now and just leave me alone. There is no good coming from interacting with the wet cat.
Well said.
The wet cat wants to bite and scratch.
If you don't listen to podcasts on Spotify, or if you do, you might not know that you can leave a comment on podcast episodes. You can respond right there, say, I like this part, or, you know, when Margaret talked about being a wet cat, I felt seen, or whatever you want to say. Put it on Spotify. And comments, which we will respond to, also help Spotify know, like, oh, this is a good episode that should be shown to more people. So if you listen to this podcast on Spotify, or if you could listen to this podcast on Spotify, leave a comment on this episode. We'll see them, and we would love that.
Leave us comments. And like Amy said, we will respond, especially if they're nice and not mean.
That's right.
And with that, thanks so much for listening, everybody. And we will talk to you on the next episode.
So long.